U.S. President Donald Trump speaks with his Nigerian counterpart by telephone, pledges ventilators to the nation. Kano confirms 38 new COVID-19 cases, Borno records 11. On the international scene, more than 3 million around the world now infected with coronavirus. And in sport, EPL gets May the 25th restart date.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by telephone with President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday. Information Minister Lai Mohammed said the president briefed Trump on what Nigeria is doing to contain the spread of the coronavirus. During the conversation, Trump is said to have assured Buhari the U.S. stands in solidarity with Nigeria. The American leader is also said to have pledged to ship some ventilators to Nigeria to support the country in its COVID-19 fight. With more than 1,500 and rising cases of the pandemic, Nigeria has been hurting for ventilators. Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, had just announced on Sunday that the country is short of testing kits. He said Nigeria can settle for extraction kits in its desperate efforts to increase testing. Dr. Ihekwazu said global demands for testing kits have made their acquisition a challenge at this time. But he said the extraction kits would work just as well. Presidential spokesperson Femi Adesina said Presidents Buhari and Trump exchanged condolences for their country's loss of lives to this pandemic. He said they also discussed the biting economic consequences of the COVID-19 and global economy. He also expressed satisfaction for the valuable friendship between the two countries. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, said on Tuesday the country had recorded 195 fresh cases of coronavirus in the country, raising the total to 1,532. 38 of those cases were confirmed in Kano. Kano Ministry of Health said in a message on its Twitter handle on Wednesday. The state also recorded 3 deaths. Total number of cases in the state now stands at 115. Meanwhile, Borno State government also confirmed 11 new coronavirus infection cases in the country. Borno Ministry of Health says 2 deaths were also recorded in the state. There are now 53 cases in the state. The updated figure reflects a previously reported case in Gombe State, which was moved to the Borno column. Lagos still leads the pack with 18 new cases. The continuous spread of the coronavirus pandemic in the country is forcing many governors to take decisive measures to protect their state. As part of such efforts, Bauchi State Governor Alhaji Bala Muhammad has enacted an executive order. The Bauchi State Infectious Disease Prevention Regulations on COVID-19. This order is aimed at taking a tough stand on measures to curtail the spread of the pandemic in Bauchi State. The governor's special assistant on new media, Lawal Muazu Bauchi, said there would be penalties for transgressions against the order. Mobile courts have been established for instant trials of offending residents. There are various penalties for categories of offences ranging from 5,000 to 30,000 naira. More than 100 persons who had arrived in the state from other high-risk COVID-19 states were rounded up and taken to isolation centers. Bloomberg Business Television is reporting that the Nigerian government has asked Citigroup Bank, JP Morgan Chase, New York branches of Deutsche Bank and the United Bank for Africa, among others, to provide account statements for former President Goodluck Jonathan, his wife Patience, and former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Tizani Alison Madueke. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami was said to have filed in court documents that such bank statements information would be helpful in an ongoing investigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) on the Process and Industrial Developments Limited gas deal. The report says the Attorney General did not mention Jonathan as a subject of the EFCC probe, but he appears alongside the former ministers in the proposed subpoenas. The Attorney General is said to have stated in the court filings submitted in late March that the government has good reason to believe that ministers at the highest level were involved in a corrupt scheme to steal money from Nigeria in the P&ID deal. Nigeria is looking to quash a nearly $10 billion judgment against it for a breach of agreement in a gas project. The Nigeria Customs Service delivered 1,800 bags of rice from the federal government to Oyo State as part of palliatives in this COVID-19 crisis. But the state returned the rice shipments to the federal government, claiming it had expired and was infested by weevils. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, says NAFDAC has inspected the rice and certified it fit for human consumption. But NAFDAC's Director General, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, said on a television program on Tuesday, the agency does not know the status of the controversial rice shipment to Oyo because her agency was not invited to test the samples. She said only the shipments for Lagos and Ogun State were tested and were found to be good enough for human consumption.
Coming up, African stories. Kenya turns football stadium into coronavirus isolation center. And later, international news. Coronavirus has now infected more than 3 million persons around the world.
You are watching ANN.
And add 888 join up. On top. Yes.
Which time I go be this now? Not be the same 100 when everybody pays his money.
They no use code.
Which code?
Oh boy, no get it from market to get better. 888 now be the code yo. Abi?
Yes, so anytime you recharge with star 888 star pin hash, MTN will summer you with 5 times your recharge. Make you take turn up better a wolf.
Mother, I bet slap me 888.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Some African countries are leveraging their capacity to test for COVID-19 as one of the ways of investing in their health system. Reporter Daniel Arap Moi visited a football stadium turned into a temporary hospital some 40 kilometers east of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. It has been set up in anticipation of a spike in coronavirus cases.
Frontline healthcare workers and officials in Kenya's Machakos County are turning the local stadium into an isolation facility. Doctors and nurses assemble ventilators and other equipment in readiness for the worst, a possible sharp rise in confirmed COVID-19 admissions.
The Stadia facility and the other 122-bed facilities in our various facilities is going to help us to curb the virus. So we are just planning ahead. So far we don't have a case, but we don't know what will happen tomorrow.
This makeshift facility hurriedly assembled to deal with the dire situation.
If we see numbers are increasing, we'll be able to set up 5 more tents within that stadium to increase the number to from 60 to 300 beds. It's doable, and it is a quicker and cheaper way of rather than setting up a whole hospital or destabilizing an hospital to make it a COVID-19 exclusive.
We've had several leaders coming up with structures in order to curve or to prepare itself for the coronavirus victims. The only thing we can do as residents is to support the initiative.
At the main hospital in Machakos, an oxygen supply system has been set up for those who might experience shortness of breath. The goal is to continue its usual services under unusual circumstances. Coronavirus has put an immense strain on Africa's healthcare systems, prompting governments to build new makeshift hospitals and testing facilities to help contain the spread of the virus. The pandemic has sent countries scrambling to ramp up testing efforts while maintaining bed space for other patients in their hospitals. With the battle to contain the virus still raging, the frontline caregivers are just not about to give up, sacrificing their time, setting aside their normal lives to attend to those in dire need of medical attention. With the overwhelming healthcare challenges, African countries may need to reconsider bolstering their healthcare systems to cope with the rising infections.
Egypt's Ministry of Agriculture says the country's agricultural exports have entered into the global markets, including the U.S. and European markets, even as coronavirus crisis jolts many countries. The country's agricultural minister says there is even more demand now for most of the Egyptian products. Reporter Adio El Marouki has the story.
For years, Egypt has been investing in expanding cultivation areas. The country has been also working to enhance its agricultural products' quality to meet international standards for exportation purposes. This year, these measures have paid off.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen a 10 to 15% drop. Some restrictions have been imposed by importing countries. Some traders thought COVID-19 has stopped shipping. But once that got sorted out, our exports resumed normally. No Egyptian product has been affected.
Since the year began, Egypt has exported 2.35 million tons of fruits and vegetables, with Q1 this year reflecting the same efficiency as in 2019. The prized product this year is orange, which has the lion's share in Egypt's agricultural exports. About 1.2 million tons have been exported.
For years, Egypt has been competing with Spain on the #1 spot in exporting citruses. Egypt is now #1. This year, Spain imported Egyptian oranges, which has created a new challenge for them because our oranges has overshadowed theirs in price and quality.
Potatoes comes next in Egypt's list. It has so far totaled about 550,000 tons in exports. To preserve their quality standard certifications, Egyptian exporters have been already disinfecting all their workers daily. They say the only addition COVID-19 imposed is the face mask.
Washing your hands regularly with clean water and soap has been recommended as one of the effective ways of slowing the spread of COVID-19. In South Sudan, one businessman has tapped into the demand of hand-washing containers. Patrick Oyet reports from Juba.
Timal Ahmed owned a shop selling construction materials in Juba before a partial lockdown was imposed in South Sudan. When South Sudan's government ordered that all shops be closed except those that sell food, Timal had no business. He then started adapting these containers to be used for hand washing.
I heard that there is no medicine for coronavirus. The preventive measures include washing hands with soap. I am happy to contribute to prevent the spread of coronavirus by making these hand-washing containers. The country still has few confirmed cases, and so far, all is going well.
Timal says he is selling between 150 to 200 of these a day. Each of these containers cost about $1, and many here say they are more affordable compared to imported hand-washing containers. Many Juba residents are relying on Timal's containers to set up hand-washing points and promote hygiene as a measure to slow the spread of COVID-19.
These containers are very good. I'm putting one at my gate. Whoever's coming into the compound must wash their hands, whether they're children or adults. Hand washing for us used to be only when you're going to eat food, but that's not the case now, and the containers are really helping us.
Timal says he is thinking of what other products he could make to contribute to containing the outbreak in his country.
When we return, international news. Coronavirus has now infected more than 3 million persons around the world. And later, sport. EPL gets May the 25th restart date.
You are watching ANN.
Remember that Nyanya was telling her I want marry. She dey come my house today. I'm gonna tell her to marry me.
Remember what I taught you about playing music from the internet?
I'm gonna play romantic music for her. The phone remains small, make it done. Will you marry me? I have a surprise for you. Google, play me a romantic music. Everything is okay. Network is shaky. Google, play me a romantic music. Google, play me a romantic music. Maybe I should go.
Don't let poor internet ruin special moments. Join the super fast and reliable 4G network and get double data.
Now in the watch.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. COVID-19 infections around the world has climbed past 3 million. More than 200,000 deaths have also been registered globally. Data compiled by Johns Hopkins University in the U.S. also revealed fewer than 1 million persons have recovered. The U.S. has the highest infection rate with nearly 1 million infections. It has also recorded 55,000 deaths, the world's highest rate. Italy has the second highest death toll with more than 26,000. Spain is third with more than 23,000. Data show the virus is in 185 countries. Brazil, India, and Pakistan reported their largest number of deaths in a single day. Germany has also already loosened some of its restrictions, but people are now being encouraged to stay at home amid concern the infection rate could spike again. France has taken new measures that include aggressive testing. It plans a gradual relaxation of nationwide lockdown from May the 11th. For Muslims around the world, Ramadan, which began 6 days ago, is one of the most revered months of the year. An estimated 1.5 billion Muslims are required to abstain from food and drink daily from sunrise to sunset as an act of worship. But how is this going in Jerusalem amid the coronavirus crisis? Reporter Stephanie Freed tells us more.
Twinkling lights, shopping sprees, festive decor. Staples of Ramadan observance. But in Jerusalem, like in other parts of the Muslim world, this year's brightness has been dulled by COVID-19.
Corona affected everything in the world, including Ramadan.
With businesses shuttered for more than a month, spending power is limited. Sales at Maher's East Jerusalem decor shop are down by more than 60%.
Of course, it's not the same. Of course not. But that's what I'm gonna do. Like, there's nothing to do.
Another major hurdle: Islam's third holiest site, Al-Aqsa Mosque, is off limits to the tens of thousands who usually pray there during the holy month.
Al-Aqsa's current structure was built almost 1,000 years ago. The only time throughout history that it's been closed for the entire month of Ramadan was back in 1099 after the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem.
Abstaining from services is not a new concept. Social distancing directives were forecast more than 1,000 years ago.
1400 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad talked about quarantine as a way of preventing a global pandemic spread and saving our religion and humanity.
This year, history and modern technology come together, offering observers a now common alternative.
We plan to air Friday and Taraweeh, the special Ramadan prayer, live to the world from inside Al-Aqsa during Ramadan.
The concept of broadcasting live prayer may be awkward for some, but for many, it presents an alternative in the current era of new normals.